Hello and welcome to the Tough Girl Podcast Extra, which is all about motivating and inspiring you. I'm your host, Sarah Williams. The Tough Girl Podcast Extra is like an offshoot of the Tough Girl Podcast. It's a bonus episode which comes out on a Thursday at 7 a.m. UK time. And the reason that I'm able to go back to speak to our previous guests and to put out these extra episodes is due to the financial support of the 250 patrons who are supporting me every single month. They went to Patreon, patreon.com/Tough Girl Podcast, and clicked on the button, filled in a few little details, and then boom, they are supporting the mission to increase the amount of female role models in the media. Take action and become one of them now. All patrons will get their name on a dedicated patrons page on the Tough Girl website. All female patrons, $5 and above, are invited to join the closed Facebook group, the Tough Girl Tribe. I'm so excited that you are here listening to this episode. It's a super, super fun episode with Lindsay Cole. Tribe, I've had to hit the record button because I've just got on the phone call with Lindsay Cole, who is an awesome adventurer and storyteller, and we've just started chatting. I'm like, oh my God, we've got to get this recorded. But Lindsay, how are you doing? How are you?
I'm good. Thank you, Sarah. And you?
Very well, very well. So I know you have been all over the world recently and you seem to be traveling all up and down the UK, but where are you at the moment?
I'm currently in Bristol.
Very nice. Is that your permanent home for a little bit, or is this just a little base for a while?
A little base for a while, yeah.
Fabulous.
It's the longest I've spent anywhere in a year, and it's been a month.
Oh my goodness. So Lindsay, I can't wait to catch up. So we actually last spoke to you on, well, it would have been sort of early 2018. The episode came out on March 27th in 2018. You were currently living in France and writing a book. So I know there's been lots of changes happening, but before we get into all of those changes, do you just want to introduce yourself and tell me a little bit more about you in case people haven't heard of you?
Yeah, so my name is Lindsay, and I like to go on journeys and write and speak about them. And I'm quite nomadic, as I just highlighted. I can't seem to stay in one place. I do bits and bobs to help me be free so I can go wherever I want. I have a few issues with commitment.
That's all good. Don't worry. That's no problem at all. In our last episode, we caught up, or you shared more about sort of your early life growing up and walking the rabbit-proof fence. Rabbit, if I could get my words out, walking the rabbit-proof fence. What is going on here? There's also like some of your past adventures, going to Bude in the nude on rollerblades, absolutely hysterical, riding with truckers all the way around the outskirts of Australia. So you've done some crazy and wacky challenges. But one thing that I've noticed on your website is the urban mermaid. Do you just want to share more about being a mermaid?
Yeah. So a couple of years ago, I was learning to free dive in Indonesia, and then I felt a sting to my hand, and I actually thought it was a jellyfish blobbing away, but it was actually a small piece of plastic, and it only scratched my hand. It didn't really hurt, but it was more the fact that I was miles from shore and plastic was there. So I thought it was, like everyone, pretty devastating. I wanted to do my little bit and highlight what a severe problem it was. And I grew up as a competitive swimmer, but albeit I wasn't actually very competitive, but I'd never really done a water-based or swimming adventure. So I thought, to encourage me to move back home or try and put some roots back home in England, I would swim the length of the River Thames as a mermaid and highlight how we're choking our creatures in our waterways with plastic.
I love it. I love how your brain works. So, where do you...
It made real sense to me at the time.
No, I get it. But like, where do you... So you want to swim the length of the Thames, dressed as a mermaid. How do you pull this together? I mean, do you just have an idea and then you're sort of doing it the next day? Is there planning and preparation behind your challenges?
Yeah, I'm very impulsive though, and I suppose I'm quite creative. But when I was in Bali, I was going through Instagram of my newfound hobby, free diving, and saw that some freedivers don a mermaid fin and swim undersea. So I thought, oh, that would be great. And then I thought, well, swimming is swimming, but no one's ever probably mermaided the Thames before. So, and I thought the link of me being a mermaid would then get passers-by to ask us what we were doing. And then it was, I think so many people are talking about this plastic pandemic at the moment, and some people probably might not like to hear it or be preached to, or I don't know. So I thought, well, if people see there's a mermaid in the water, they'll wonder why, and then we could just say why we're doing it, and then they can take it from there.
So what was the first step? What was the journey to the start of the Thames?
Well, I went on a work due to San Francisco, and I saw an opportunity to first use my tail, which I only got online 2 days before I went to San Francisco, as there's a big swim from Alcatraz to San Francisco Bay. It happens, I think it's every 2 weeks or every month, but I just missed it because my plane landed a couple of hours after it happened. But then I noticed that you could do your own private swim with a canoe, and it was reasonably priced. And because I had my accommodation and flight paid for, I thought, well, I could afford to cough up what it costs to have your own private canoe and do the swim, which is 2 miles. And then I thought, well, that would be a good way to test if I could actually swim with a mermaid tail. As if I couldn't, I could just chuck my tail off and pass it to my canoe pal. And then I would probably not be able to swim the Thames with a mermaid tail. And then if I could, Bob's your uncle. And I could. And it was a good feeling when I sat in San Francisco Bay with hair and snot all over my face with my mermaid tail on. I was grinning from ear to ear because I thought, this is the first steps.
The first steps indeed. And how was the swim? Because I've heard it's like a really isn't it quite a difficult channel to swim?
It is, but then that's why you do it with this as an organised venture with people who know about the currents and the tides and time it right. So it's a common swim. Many people accomplish it. So it was 2 miles. It took me an hour and a bit. I became the first mermaid to ever swim from Alcatraz, which I'm quite proud about. And yeah, it was okay. It was okay. It was cold, but it was all right.
Congratulations, the first mermaid swimming from Alcatraz to San Francisco Bay. Absolutely amazing. Unofficially.
Yeah.
Brilliant. You mentioned, what job do you do? What are you working as at the moment?
Oh, golly. That is the old age question with me. I teach English online, so I can take it anywhere I go. And I have literally done it in bushes or bus stops or truck stops. And I do speaking and I write, and sometimes I clean dishes or clean people's homes. So I just do bits and bobs. As I'm trying to write a book, and I find it quite hard to sit down and concentrate. So I thought if I do bits and pieces of work, I can... it would be a better option to get it done, but it doesn't seem to be the case.
Well, why did you get flown out to San Francisco?
This is quite funny. It was a speaking job at Uber about my truck driving circumnavigation around Australia, because Uber were opening up a freight department. So they wanted me to tell them my tales about truck drivers.
That is awesome. So you are actually an international speaker being flown over to San Francisco.
Yeah, it was very amusing.
Absolutely fantastic. And you got to, test out your mermaid tail. The mermaid tail is working. Absolutely brilliant. So
exactly.
You're coming back to the UK. What time of year is this when you decide to swim the Thames?
Yeah, well, I didn't actually come back to the UK. I was living in Spain and Valencia at the time to enable me to have cheap rent and try and write. And then I had to have a friend to canoe beside me for safety. And I worked with someone in France when I was living in France who was an artist, and she made sculptures out of waste. So I messaged her to see if she wanted to be a part of it and see if she could make a mermaid sculpture out of recycled plastic. And she wasn't available until November. And I'd had the idea for a year anyway. And I didn't really want to wait until the next summer because something else would probably come along. So we did it in November, which was really cold. And because I've been living in Spain, where the water, when I was last in it, was 17 degrees, the first time I went and tried the Thames was the day before I started my swim, and it was 7 degrees. So I really spooked myself, and I was sick. I was actually physically sick when I tried to have dinner the night before and couldn't eat for a whole week.
Oh my God, I'm really trying really hard not to laugh. I'm so sorry because I know.
It's funny now. At the time, it was horrendous because at a time when I should be my fattest and have insulin to warm me up, I was just losing weight and I just couldn't eat. I could eat ginger biscuits eventually, and at nighttime I could eat dinner. But in the morning, I just couldn't eat anything. I was, from being so nervous. Even though I told myself, Lindsay, this is just your thing. No one's judging you or anything. Don't be nervous. But something inside me was just unhappy.
Wowzers. So, I mean, I can't, oh, wow. I mean, 17 degrees in Spain actually sounds a little bit cold to me, but then going to like 7 degrees in the Thames in November, I mean, oh, wow. That's not my cup of tea.
Well, and there's no cheating it. So I've done long distance running or long distance walking or cycles where you can sort of train as you go, but there's no cheating in cold water. You really do have to acclimatize to it.
So how did you do that? Were you going in and just swimming for like a few hours at a time? Was it a case of 20 minutes, have a break, get out, warm up, 20 minutes? What did you have a strategy before you went in?
Oh, no strategy. That's not how I roll. Well, because I didn't know until the day before that I would find it as challenging as it was going to be. Because I did a 10K 2 months before, so I knew I could do a fairly reasonable distance, and that was in Valencia. But yeah, I wore 2 wetsuits, 2 pairs of gloves, and 2 socks, and a surfer's hood to fend me off the cold. But then a catch to that was that it made me really buoyant, so it made the swimming and the mermaiding especially really hard. So yeah, I started off with maybe a couple of hours, hopped out, jumped up and down, walked a bit, got back in, and just did it like that until day by day. I was basically training as I went along, really, because like I say, you need to acclimatize to the environment that you're getting into. And as it was the day before that I was getting into it, it was sort of training as I went. But then I was really proud of myself and of the human body. By the second week, my shoulders were buff. They were twice the size, and my back was strong, and I could last for much longer, and 6 hours towards the end. So it was really quite amazing to see, if you persevere, what your body and mind can achieve.
How long did it take you in the end?
22 days.
22 days. And did you have a base for the whole time you were there? Were you bringing stuff, were you moving along the Thames as well? Like, where were you going home to at night? Were you staying with friends? Were you putting out on social media? How was that working?
Yeah, well, that was a challenge as well. So I don't earn much, so my budget was tiny. So I tried to blag. I'm quite good at blagging. That's a bit of an occupation of mine. And I blagged as many hotels or B&Bs as I could. And in between them, got swimmers who put us up for the night. But there was a lot of logistics involved. So we'd start in one spot, and Blah, my canoeing friend, had her car. So we'd either swim to the next stop and have to find a volunteer to drive us to the beginning where we parked our car. So then we could then go and drive to wherever we were staying that night. So there were a couple of occasions where I actually swam up to the riverbank where I was staying, if it was someone's house or a hotel. That was pretty cool. But the logistics of driving to each place we were staying was, quite challenging.
So you're dealing with like challenging logistics, the challenge of the cold, the first week not being able to keep food down. Mentally, what's going in? What keeps you going?
I was just talking to someone at the moment, actually. So I've just finished another journey a few weeks ago, and I actually find moving so much easier because you have somewhere to get to. So that is what keeps you moving. That's your challenge of the day. When I'm trying to write a book or sit down in one location, that's when I find it hard because you procrastinate. But if you procrastinate when you're in 7 degrees water, you're just not going to get anywhere and get ill, or just, it's what I find beautiful about adventures or journeys is the physicality of moving from A to B, because you each day achieve something. So you're bit by bit getting close to where you need to be, and you just break it down like that.
Yeah. What was the funniest or most exciting thing that happened to you on the Mermaid Thames swim?
So on about the third day, because we were also collecting plastic, Blah thought she saw a giant white plastic bag tangled in a tree. And then when she got closer, she realised it was a cow who'd fallen into the river over the course of the night. So we called the police and the RSPCA, and 6 firemen had to come to haul her out. And they had to make her swim to the other side of the river, actually, because she was stuck on the Gloucestershire side, resting her chin on a branch. She was submerged right up to her chin, so she was in a pretty bad state. And she had to swim to the Gloucestershire side. She was taken to the vet and reunited with her 2 calves the following day. The next day, a journalist interviewed us and said, what have you found? And we told them all the plastic we found, and then mentioned a cow. And then the next day, I was on page 3 of The Sun in my bikini with the headline, Mermaid saves drowning cow, and it was all over the national news, which was kind of annoying because I'd spent a few weeks beforehand trying to drum up publicity about mermaids swimming the Thames for plastic, but it wasn't until we found a cow that anyone actually cared.
Oh my God, I've just written that down. 6 firemen, a mermaid, and a cow. I mean, there's just so many jokes in there.
I know. And actually, funnily enough, this summer someone messaged me and she read the story about Mermaid Saves Drowning Cow, and she's a theatre director for kids, and asked if she could turn it into a play. So she did. So now I'm trying to write a kids book about a mermaid who saves a cow.
Oh my God, I love it. That is amazing. Have you been to see the play yet?
Yeah, it was really sweet. It was in Wembley in August, so it was really sweet.
Oh, I mean, gosh, so much is happening. So 22 days. How many miles did you end up swimming? What was the total distance?
It was around 100. The distance is 120 from Lechlade to Tennington.
And how is it swimming with the mermaid tail? I mean, that must be a really good ab workout, I'm thinking.
Oh, it is. It's hard. It was really hard, especially because I was so buoyant. Because with butterfly movement, which you do to mermaid, you have to thrust your hips. But because the 2 wetsuits were making me float above the surface of the water, I was sort of going against the buoyancy pull. So I did sometimes just let my tail drag and use front crawl arms. And sometimes I just took the tail off to kick so I could pick up speed if I was lagging behind. But I acquired a few tricks, which was pretty cool. When kids came along, I'd wear my tail and I'd dive to the bottom of the river and flip my tail and say, hello, which they liked. And actually, as I got closer to Teddington, we came across lots of rowers. And I did exactly that as well. So a rowing 8 of girls. The cocks first saw me and thought, what is that? And then it was swiftly followed by 7 screams of these girls, because I suppose they row on every Saturday in that part of the river and never have rowed past the Mermaid before.
Oh, fantastic. You're just cheering people up as you're swimming down the Thames, helping out with plastic pollution, saving cows, cheering up rowers who probably had a really tough and brutal day. I was going to ask the question, did you have a plan for after you finished the swim? But I'm going to say you didn't have a plan.
No. That was really hard, actually. I do this quite a lot. So I often drum up an idea and I get so obsessed and immersed in that idea, and I put all my energy into planning it and the logistics and maybe getting funding or sponsors or freebies. and that I totally forget about the aftermath and don't have any work lined up. And then I've got all this time on my hand, and it's, I find that really difficult and get quite depressed. So I got quite depressed in December after I swam the Thames.
What do you do? Like, I mean, do you have like a home base? So I know, I always go back to my parents, for example. I mean, can you go back to like your mums, or do you have any other family you can go back to, or friends that you sort of go to?
I have slept in a lot of beds in Britain. I did used to always go back to my mum's, but then after living in Valencia and then doing the Thames, and then coming back to my mum's after that, I was like, I can't do this again at 35, because I found it too easy, and I got sad because it wasn't near any of my friends, or it was just out on the outskirts of London. But I love her dearly and we got on really well, but I thought, no, I've got to not do this anymore. So I did crash. I was crashing at a mate's, but then at the same time of being free is the downside of not having a base. But then it enables me to just get up and go when the next idea pops in, and which happened in January. So I was able to go because I wasn't tied down anywhere.
Actually, can I just ask, you said you get quite low and quite sort of depressed about it. Is getting the next idea, the next challenge, is that how you help with that? Or is there anything else that you're doing to help you manage those feelings?
No, it is pretty much coming up with an idea, and that's really dangerous because you're kind of plastering the problem, because it's always going to come back. But I'm sort of getting above that now. So I've spent the last 15 years being quite nomadic and hadn't spent more than 10 months in one place. So when I came back to do the Thames, I was like, right, Lindsay, try. It reignited my love for Britain, actually, swimming the Thames. I saw it from a totally different view, and people were incredibly kind, just appeared from rural reeds to ask if they could join me. Some people appeared with food, and it just made me realise, Britain's actually all right. So I was like, right, now let's try and think of where you want to stay and root yourself in Britain. Whereas before, I didn't even know what country I wanted to settle in.
January 2019, you've got another idea, which is, I don't know where the ideas come from. However, you get the ideas in your head. How do you get the ideas? How did the next idea come about?
It's just situational. So I was crashing at friends. I thought I'd want to live in Totnes, maybe. Like some people stalk guys or girls that they might fancy and look at pictures of them online. I was looking at pictures of Totnes thinking, I'd quite like to live there, as it's quite progressive, and it used to be quite hippie-ish and it's arty. So I went down to Totnes for a week to see if I would like it. And but just before, actually, I went to something called the UK Cold Water Swimming Championships in Tooting Bec, and I went on my own. I was a bit nervous of rocking up on my own because it's like a festival of swimming, so there's lots of hustle and bustle and people walking around in fancy dress hats and in their swimsuits and robes. And then within a minute of arriving, someone said, Stumpy Cole, you made it. And then I felt a tap on my shoulder, and it was another virtual friend that I've been talking to online. So after swimming the Thames, I received all these messages saying they enjoyed my journey and invited me to swim with them wherever they were, and there's always a bed for me. So I found out that there was another. I was gutted because this UK Cold Water swimming champs in Tooting Bec isn't on for another. It's every 2 years. So I was like, oh no, I've just discovered this wonderful community, wonderful hobby, and a great festival. And so I was sad I had to wait another 2 years. And someone mentioned that there was one in Scotland in March. So I told my mum I was going to go and try out Totnes. So I even looked at a couple of properties that I could potentially rent or whatever. And then I just started cycling to Scotland and stayed and joined different swimming groups along the way. And as a way of venturing up to Scotland because it was cheaper, and also I thought, I could see more of Britain and see if there was anywhere else in Britain that I might want to settle.
Oh my goodness, fantastic. So do you know how many people that you stayed with, how many swims you went on your journey up to Scotland?
Well, so it took me 2 weeks to get to Scotland, and I bookended each day with a swim. So I was high for 2 weeks because swimming, just when you dunk your head under cold water, it just makes me feel alive and invincible. So I'd swim with people, which is wonderful camaraderie. You'd eat cake and have coffee and natter about the world and put the world to rights. Then I'd hop on my bike and pedal across the country to someone else. So for 2 weeks, I was just buzzing. So by the time I got to Scotland and did the Scottish Cold Water Champs, I'd never really seen Scotland before. I didn't have anything to get back to. I couldn't really go back and crash at my friend's dad's at Totnes again, really. So I just thought I'd carry on. So I did. So a 2-week journey turned into 6 months. And I swam in more than 100 locations with over 1,000 people. I think I slept in 150 beds. It just kept going. But because because I was so free of responsibility, I was able to keep extending.
Oh my goodness, fantastic. I mean, what was that like? Like like 1,000 different people, 100 different locations. Do you have a favorite cold water swim spot that you can share? Or, what did you learn on this journey?
I learned loads, actually. Britain is beautiful. We always, whenever you want to go off on holiday, most people go overseas. And now, obviously, with the climate crisis, we should fly less. But there's so many wonderful spots right on our doorstep. I discovered places I'd never heard of, and my geography is pretty good. Sometimes I would be loath. So a lot of my swimmers were my compass, basically. I didn't really know where I was going. And if someone said, "Oh, come here," and if it was close by, that's how I navigated my journey. And sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. So if no one had invited me, I'd put a post out on the Outdoor Swimming Society on my Facebook and say, I'm swimming here on this day and there on another day, but does anyone swim in between? And people would answer, but sometimes it would be slow. And then if it was slow, like it took a day or so to hear from anyone, I think, Linz, what are you doing? You're in the northernmost part of mainland Scotland. You've been on the road for a good few months now. What are you doing with your life? And then sure enough, a few hours later, someone would say, "Oh, I love your journey. I've just spotted that you're nearby. There's always a warm bed and a meal for you here. And we've got a lovely swimming community that's going to welcome you with warm, open arms. So come whenever you're free." And it was really heartwarming because it just showed how, especially in times like now with Brexit and how the whole political global climate is, it was heartwarming that there's such wonderful, wonderful people. And all these people were strangers. I never met them before. I'd meet them, would strip almost naked, hold each other's hands, and then just run into the sea, river, or lake, squealing with utter joy, like we'd known each other all our lives. It was really, really warm, and it happened so organically as well.
Do you also carry a tent with you when you were traveling and cycling?
Well, because originally the 2 weeks were planned, so I had all my beds planned and swims planned. I was traveling as light as I could, so I was bike packing, which is a little bag that attaches to the back of your saddle, so I could really only carry my absolute essentials, and I can afford the weight of a tent, so I didn't. And then because I got all the way up to Scotland, I had all my gear and I couldn't get a tent from then. So I really was just working on the kindness of strangers and banking on the kindness of strangers of giving me a place to stay. And sometimes if I didn't have a place to stay, I'd write to a hotel and try and blag a free bed there, and it tended to work.
I mean, the thing for me that I'm sort of feeling is it's the uncertainty, which I'm almost feeling quite sort of unsettled, which is, but that's obviously something that you enjoy. I think it would sort of stress me out not knowing where I was going to be sleeping every night. And did you ever need like quiet time or like downtime or just away from, having the same conversations over and over and over again with just different people? Like, did you ever feel like that? Or is this actually, is this where you thrive?
Well, a little bit of both, but that was the madness of the first 2 weeks because I had to get to the Scottish cold water champs within a time frame. I couldn't dilly daddle, so I would be cycling distances from 50 to 100 miles after swimming in the morning and in the evening, with a lot of talking as well. With it, swimmers like to talk, so often I'd be running late to get on my bike. And then sprint cycling 50 or so miles. I did more training for this accidentally in cycling than I ever did when I tried to train for an Ironman. But yeah, I did find it difficult because I'd either be with people in the morning swimming on my bike or with people in the evening swimming and then staying with someone. So the only downtime I had was when I was in the bath, really, for about an hour a day, or I'd be thinking when I was cycling, sort of. But after Scotland and after the cold water champs, I went on my own way. It was a bit looser, and I'd always be with people, but also occasionally I'd have a hotel and time on my own. Sometimes I slept outside. I might find I did have a sleeping bag with me just in case, and I acquired a bivy bag from Alpkit later on. So sometimes I'd just sleep outside.
And are you still writing and working, like teaching English online and writing your books during this time period or not?
I wasn't writing, but I was teaching online. And that's where it was really good, actually, because I got free accommodation from these kind people who put me up and they fed me. And so if I just did a couple of lessons a day, that was sort of decent pocket money. So I could treat people as well. And I could do it anywhere, like I said, in a bus stop, or the more confident I got, sometimes I did it in a bush if I really had to get somewhere at a certain time. It's probably not very professional, but at least it gave us something to talk about to my students. They were like, "Where are you now, Lindsay?" But every day I was writing inadvertently. So I'd post on Instagram about who I'd swam with, and I'd do it on the back of swimming with them. So it made me buzz. I was buzzing. And I just wrote whatever I felt at the time. And it was really natural. Whereas before, when I was trying to write a book, I was trying to emulate someone. I wasn't someone more intelligent than I am. And actually, this journey gave me a lot of confidence on my writing, because people would then comment, say, "Oh, I love how you write, or how you describe things, or etc." Which is really lovely, because before I thought I sound a bit silly and I was trying to rein in my personality, but that's, I suppose, what you've got to do when you write. Unleash who you are.
Unleash it all, put it out there. Never rein in your personality. Never. Oh my goodness, never, never, never. One of the things in your website that you shared, I'm not quite sure of the date when you shared it, but you shared about living with ADHD.
Uh-huh.
Would you be able to share a little bit more about when you got diagnosed and what the impact's been?
Yeah, so I was diagnosed when I was 16, actually, but I don't think much was known about it then. And then I got extra time in my exams at school. But then when I went to uni, I was a bit embarrassed about having extra time. Or I didn't have extra time, but I was allowed to walk out and have a break. And I was a bit embarrassed about it. And actually, if I mentioned it to people, they sort of say, "Oh, I don't think you do," or "I think everyone does," or "I think I have," etc., etc. So I sort of kind of didn't forget about it, but it was more in the back of my head. And then with this writing a book, I've really struggled. I really enjoy writing, but I really struggled to just sit down and concentrate and focus. And I suffered a bit of depression and loads of self-doubt. And then it spiraled as I didn't pick up on it quick enough. And my sister-in-law is a GP, and so she booked me in to see someone, which is good because I never probably would have gone otherwise. And he told me to tell him a bit about myself, and he said, "Oh, you're classic." And actually it was really nice because I've struggled with why I can't settle down, or why I can't progress in life, or why I can't have a relationship or stick in a job, or what, my commitment issues, or comparing myself to all my friends who are sort of doing really well in their careers and have houses or kids or married. And he kind of said, well, that's because of who you are. So you should relish in it, really, which is sort of probably why when I came up with the idea to cycle to the World Cup, my friend said, you can't do that on your own. So I asked the Metro to help me find a team. And whenever I want to do something, I'll find a way. And that's the impulsivity side of ADHD. So it's not a problem at all. Many people have it. But if you're in a 9-to-5 job, you might have structure. And I don't have structure in my life. So sometimes it can become overbearing, and I suffer from it.
But I can just see like how much you have achieved over the past couple of years. And I think the comparison things, it's so easy. I think we all do it, compare ourselves to other people. It's something I've spent like a long time getting myself out of that mindset almost, and just to be like, actually, hold on. What do I like doing? How do I want to spend my time? Where's my enjoyment? Am I doing what makes me happy? And at the end of the day, you sound really happy when you're doing your challenges. I know it's difficult when they finish, but when you're out there swimming in the Thames and saving cows and meeting all these incredible people throughout Britain and living your life on your terms, I think it's incredible. Did they give you like any tactics or any structure? I mean, I don't know about how to manage it. Is it a case of managing it?
Yeah, so I have pills now, but I don't take them all the time. The doctor said they're like someone who's short-sighted needs to wear glasses, someone with ADHD needs to focus, can take tablets to help them focus. So when I want to write, I sit down and I might pop a pill. Or it is a case of managing it, but because I've moved around so much, I get a bit unsettled in the head. And so even now I've been in one spot for 6 weeks in Bristol. I've still been all around the country, and I'm like, it wouldn't have used to excite me, but now I'm like, I'm trying to settle down. So it's just a matter of putting things into place to know what works for you, and structure's a big part of it. But whenever I do put structure in, it might last a few days or a couple of weeks, and then I wane again and forget about it. So it's just balance and working with it. But I'm actually happier with who I am now, because I might earn maybe 12 grand a year or something at the moment, but I don't spend anything. Like if I want if I need clothes, I might get them from a charity shop or blag them from a brand that I really like and give them a purpose to give them to me, which I kind of like. It's sort of it's like a trade payment, and I feel like I've earned them, and it's sort of how I like the challenge in that as well. Or I cycle everywhere, or walk, or never really get the bus. Or even if I need to get a train somewhere, I'll probably get the National Express or something, because it's a hell of a lot cheaper. So there are ways you can balance your life and be frugal, and you don't need much money really to spend.
Yeah. Do you want to settle down?
Sarah, I don't know. When I'm on the move, I think I want to settle down, and then when I'm in one spot, then I think, where do I need to be? But it's really nice, actually. I've been in Bristol for a little bit, and then it takes a while of not knowing people, and it's sort of intimidating, and you think, I don't have any friends, and then you meet one person, and then you connect with them, and you're like-minded, and then through them you might meet someone else. So it just takes time, and it's knowing that. Whereas before I was so addicted to getting to see more of the world, and I'd just keep moving on. Whereas now, I worked at a photography exhibition a couple of years ago, and they had a giant map of the world, and it, with the inscription on the top saying, "Where in the world would you most like to go?" Put a pin on it. And I didn't know where to put the pin because I'd been to most of the places that I wanted to go. And so, of course, like anywhere else now would be, I'd love to go. It's a bonus, but I don't have any burning desire to go anywhere. And it's quite nice. It's quite nice to know, I think I'm slowing down. Like to, chill out and get to know places and people better.
Why did you pick Bristol?
Well, this is an interesting question. So on my swim kept extending, like I said, from 2 weeks to 6 months. And I kept extending it because I was having a great time, but also didn't really know where to go or what to do. So it was just easier to keep moving. And then when I was in Clevedon, at Clevedon Marine Lake, I met a guy. And then we got on and connected. And then he offered to come and find me meet me in the Peak District. And I texted a friend. I said, what do I do? This guy has just messaged to say he'll come and meet me. And she said, just say yes. I was like, okay. So that was our first date. And then he came and met me when I was, say, in Dorset, and then in Devon, then in Cornwall, and when I finished in Scilly. And then he said, well, if you don't know where to go, you're always welcome to hang out at mine until you do. So so I've been hanging out at his whilst I work out the next bit.
Ooh, I'm so excited. Yes, Lindsay, you go, girl.
I know, it's so funny. So funny. And he's quite like me, actually. He's quite nomadic and he's always moved around and not really settled. So it's nice to have someone who appreciates my head. And he has ADHD too, so he can sometimes I can be quite selfish. I don't mean to be. I'm quite thoughtful with friends, but I do a lot of thinking in my head, and I think sometimes I might be thinking out loud and everyone might know what I'm thinking, but they don't. And so I might do some things impulsively, and some previous boyfriends have been like, why did you do that? Why didn't you tell me? I was like, I kind of thought I did. But Tom is his name, and he's like, Lindsay, remember to tell me. But he gets it because he's been there and understands how my head works. So that's really nice too.
Ooh, that is really nice. Ooh, romance. Right, we're gonna we're gonna mix things up a little bit. So we're gonna do quick fire questions. My questions may be quick, but your answers don't have to be. Are you ready?
Oh yes.
Okay. Are you a morning person or an evening person?
Well, it used to definitely be evening, but now I'm quite sleepy in the morning and the evening, but I'd say evening.
So evening. What time do you go to bed?
Oh, late, midnight.
What time do you wake up in the morning?
It depends when my lessons are. If I have an early lesson, I'll get up then. If I didn't set my alarm, I'd say 9:15.
9 a.m.? I'm sorry, not a.m. or p.m. Tea or coffee?
Coffee over and over. Don't like tea.
Do you read books or listen to audiobooks?
Read books more. I try to download audiobooks, but they're quite expensive, so read.
What book are you reading at the moment, or what book have you read recently?
Oh, crikey. This is another tough one, because this is the problem with phones. If I'm reading an article or see something on Twitter, I'm like, that looks like a good book. Then I download it, and I'm already reading about 6. So I'm currently reading Henry Fraser's book. He had an accident when he was about 18 in Portugal and broke his back and was paralyzed from the neck down. And it now paints with his mouth, so it's quite a mini book. So I was reading that when I couldn't sleep last night.
What about movies? Do you have a favourite movie, or have you ever sort of binge watched on like Netflix or Amazon Prime? What would you watch? I
can't have Netflix because I freelance and my time is up to my own responsibility. And Netflix has a habit of playing the next episode with like 4 seconds later. that I've ended up watching a whole series in one night. And if I'm very curious and I can't handle suspense, so I have done that many times. So I don't have Netflix. Films, I went to see Judy recently. And yeah, I love going to the cinema every now and then. And I even go on my own, actually. I quite like watching a film on my own. But yeah.
I always go to the cinema on my own. I cannot think of anything worse. And if there's a movie that you want to go see and watch, but, for whatever reason, there's no one who wants to see it with you or no one's available. And then I think, why would you miss out by not going to the cinema just because you go by yourself?
I know, yeah. And someone said that's weird to go on your own. And I thought that was really sad for them because I'm quite used to doing things on my own. So, yeah.
I totally agree. And I was going to say, I'll put it out there to the tribe. If you haven't been to the cinema by yourself, go for it. Try it and see what you like. What about music? Do you like listening to music? Do you have a favourite genre, favourite song?
I do like listening to music, but I'm quite useless with knowing what things are. I love live music, so I went to a couple of live bands at the weekend, and the guy was in his 80s. It was jazz, and it was incredible and soulful. But then I tend to default to 90s Brit rock, like Oasis, Blur, Pulp, Suede, all that stuff. Yeah, I'm not very down with the kids' music today.
I'll say 90s Brit rock sounds amazing.
Good.
What about food? What's your favourite type of food when you're sort of in normal life? And what's your favourite food when you're doing your challenges and expeditions?
Normal life. Oh, golly. I don't really know. Sri Lankan curry is my current favourite. I love lime. Fresh curry with lime. And when I'm on the go, this is really interesting, actually, because I got contacted by a couple of companies to promote their nutrition bars or whatever. But I don't use them. So I was like, I think that would be a bit disingenuous if I did that. I just I eat a lot of pasties on the road and just whatever comes my way, really. Whatever's cheap.
What's your favourite piece of kit or gear?
Again, this is what's asked a lot. And because I'm disorganised and messy, the more stuff I have, the more I lose. So I have the bare minimals. On this swim, I'd say the trustiest piece of kit I had was my thermal leggings, which I've had for 15 years. And I could wear them as leggings to go out in as well. So, yeah.
Did your mermaid tail survive, like after, the Thames swim and everything and all the rest of the swimming?
Yeah, it did. And actually, for some peculiar reason on this dipping around Britain journey, when I realised I was going to continue, I went back to Totnes to collect my laptop so I could do some work and earn some money on the go and write maybe. And for some bizarre reason, I picked up my mermaid tail because I saw that it clipped into my backpack quite perfectly. And I thought, just in case, the off chance I need my tail, I'll take it with me. And there were embarrassing, cringeworthy times when it fell off my bag, and then I had some 70-year-old man shouting at me, excuse me, you dropped something. And I'd go and get it. He said, what is it? I was like, it's a mermaid tail. And he's like, oh, right, yeah, of course. But it was also wonderful because if I stayed with strangers, they'd tell them a mermaid, they'd tell their kids a mermaid was staying to make them be a bit all right with having a stranger stay. And then they were obsessed with it. So especially 4 to 5-year-olds, they'd demand that I wore my tail whilst I read them a story whilst they're in bed. And as I was reading them a story, they'd stroke my tail. So it was quite endearing.
I really, really want a mermaid tail now for my niece's 4th birthday party.
Which made me think if I do this kids book, it will be for 3 to 5-year-olds because they loved the mermaid. And I'm not sure if they actually knew that I wasn't actually a mermaid.
Oh, that is literally the cutest. 2 more questions. What do you do for rest and relaxation?
Oh, I'm very active. I'm all or nothing. So if I'm on the go, I can cycle every day, run every day for months on end. But when I am not, I'm very good at lying down. So I'm quite good at lying on a couch and lying in the morning. I like to go to the park and look at dogs and stroke dogs and chat to dogs. And yeah, swim outdoors.
Love it. And do you have a mantra or words that you try and live your life by?
Not particularly. There's a great one by Mark Twain that says, in 20 years from now, you'll regret things that you didn't do rather than the ones you did. But also ones that I teach myself actually from learned experience is it's like writing a book. Writing a book is like swimming the Thames, even though I still haven't written a flaming book. But you can never swim the Thames or such a big distance or cross a country in one day. You do it day by day, bit by bit. So when you're learning and you skill, it can be horrendously difficult at first. But if you break it down to bit by bit, it should ease the pain and you should become a master.
Yeah, it is all about breaking it down. I mean, Lindsay, I'm so excited to see what is going to be the next challenge, what is going to be the next adventure. I know have you thought about it yet or not? Have you got something planned?
No, I really am trying to sort of rein it in and finish a book. I think I'm going to do one about swimming, swimming around with strangers around Britain. And I'm just going to try and focus on that. But I have become just qualified as an outdoor swimming coach. So I'm going to do a bit more of that as well.
Oh, congratulations. That's fantastic. Like, yeah, brilliant. And Lindsay, how can people find out more about you and your adventures, or, hire you to speak, to fly you to places around the world to go and chat with people?
Yeah. Well, I am on Instagram as @StompyCole or www.lindsaycole.co.uk.
Fantastic. Lindsay, it's been so incredible catching up with you. And also it's been amazing to follow you. I mean, I followed a lot of your journey on Instagram as well, it's been amazing to see, where you've been, what you've been doing, and, getting out there and doing all these like amazing challenges and the cow and being a mermaid and, keep having these crazy adventures, keep being you. And thank you so much for coming back on the Tough Girl Podcast Extra to share more. It's been awesome.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you.
Hey tribe, I hope you enjoyed that episode with Lindsay. What an absolute superstar. If you are brand new to the Tough Girl Podcast, then please do go check out toughgirlchallenges.com, where you'll be able to find more information about everything that we've talked about today in the show notes. If you want to go and listen to the first episode where we spoke with Lindsay, we spoke to her on March 27th in 2018. And during that podcast episode, Lindsay shares more about her early life, losing her father while being on the other side of the world while she was backpacking, how she threw herself in adventure to deal with the grief. She talks more about walking the rabbit-proof fence in Australia, as well as riding with truckers around the outskirts of Australia as well. During the episode as well, we do talk about mental health in quite a lot of detail. So please just make sure that you're in a good place before you listen to that first episode. The Tough Girl Extra episodes, I am actually finding absolutely fascinating. It's amazing to go back to speak to these incredible women to find out what they've been up to, whether that's been 2 years ago, 3 years ago, or even 4 years ago. It's amazing to follow their journey and to follow their progress. So we've got a few more episodes which have come out and are coming out. So take a listen to Jo Bradshaw, who is going after the 7 Summit. She shares more details about that challenge. We talk a lot about money, and we also do talk about mental health as well. Next Thursday, we're going to be catching up with Anna Blackwell, who's going to be sharing more about her Green Ribbon expedition and some of the challenges she faced while she was out there in the wilderness. We've got Paula Reed coming out on the 5th of December, Sarah Ooten on the 12th of December. And we spoke with Sarah Ooten way back in 2015, and that's going to be a really, really, it is going to be a fascinating conversation for you to hear as we learn more about what she's been going through over the past couple of years. I'm also really excited that we're going to be catching up with Melissa Yuri. Now, we've spoken to Melissa quite a few times now on the Tough Girl Podcast, and Melissa has recently just become the first woman to complete the Uberman, which is an ultra triathlon in the United States. Melissa's been doing ultra distance triathlons for over 5 years, and she started training for Uberman in June. And there's been quite a few episodes. The last episode came out beginning quite a few months ago, where she talked more about her training and her preparation and how she was getting ready for Uberman. And no woman has actually ever attempted to do it solo. And she went out there and did a 34-kilometer swim in the Pacific Ocean, a 644-kilometer bike ride, and a 217-kilometer run to the top of Mount Whitney, the highest peak in the continental United States. An absolutely incredible woman, full of inspiration. So we have the Tough Girl podcast episodes coming out on a Tuesday. So make sure you subscribe, because we then have the Tough Girl extra episodes coming out on a Thursday. And like I mentioned at the start, the reason I'm able to produce this extra content is due to the financial support that I receive every single month from patrons, whether that's $2 a month, $5 a month, $10 a month, $25 a month. It really does make a massive difference, because instead of me washing dishes in the local cafe, I can actually spend my time speaking to these incredible women, editing the show notes, producing the content, writing the show notes, publicizing it all, getting it out on social media. So I hope I hope the Tough Girl podcast has helped to empower you, to encourage you, to motivate you. If it has changed your life for the better, if you feel motivated, if you feel inspired, if you want to pay it forward, which I really do hope you do, then please do go check out Patreon, patreon.com/Tough Girl Podcast, and sign up from $2 or $5 a month. It really does make a massive difference. Thank you again to everybody who's supporting me. I know all your names. They're all written down. They are all on the website. You're on my patrons page. I look at your names often, and I am so grateful to each and every one of you. I am so blessed to have you in my life, so blessed that you are supporting me and making this big difference and helping me to increase the amount of female role models in the media. This is so important, and I'm so passionate about it. But wherever you are, whatever you are doing, I just want to make sure that you give it your all. You get after it, you give it 110%, go for it, and believe in yourself, because I believe in you. All right, take care, lots of love, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.